Hey there everyone, welcome to the ultimate video about learning on the webhooks. So in any point of time in the life you want to see that I want to really understand what webhooks are and what are the different ways of handling the webhooks. Doesn't really matter if the webhooks are being triggered from applications like Clerk or maybe the webhooks which are triggered by some payment gateway like Razorpay. They all foundationally are same, and if you understand the basics and foundation of it, then I'm 100% sure that you'll be nailing down the event-driven architecture. The event-driven architecture is whole based on that there will be some event which will be triggered and my system will be notified for that. I don't have to keep on waiting or polling, long polling. We don't do that. It is just an endpoint that will be hit by any service or system, and I'll behave and react on it. So it looks like almost like a user is acting onto your endpoint, but no, there is a lot more on that. Now, one of the most common scenario that you're going to see is especially the things that we are going to discuss with the Clerk. When the user actually signs up, Clerk provides you a lot of webhooks that can interact with your system. The same thing can happen in any payment gateway as well, where a payment is being triggered. You want more information, or maybe sometimes it takes a little bit more time for the payment to get processed. So you want that system should notify your application that, hey, when the success happens, and you can do a regular flow of that. So this is exactly what we'll be doing. Consider this as your crash course on the webhooks. So super excited to have you in this one. A lot of theory is involved in this. We'll be writing code as well. I'll walk you through how to design such system. You can test the system and some gotchas. Everybody get these gotchas. I have talked to so many developers. They all get into these gotchas, especially webhooks don't work on the local system. They are not designed to work on that. But this doesn't mean you have to upload your system. There are solutions for that, and that's exactly what we'll be discussing in this video. So first of all, let's get with the basics of foundation of the webhook. Again, no prerequisite is required, but I'll be using Clerk as a simple endpoint to work on that so that it actually works for that. And there is a nice testing way, a way to test these endpoints directly in the Clerk. So hence we are using that. So all right. So the scenario for the webhook looks something like this. This is endpoint, and this endpoint is actually our server. So I'll just probably edit that. So this is our server, and it doesn't need to be your server altogether. It could be just a cloud function as well. A lot of people love to handle webhooks via the cloud function, but the whole point is it's your infrastructure. Now this is a service. This could be any service. In this case, we'll be using Clerk, but it could be something else, maybe Razorpay. Of course, there will be minor differences, but there could be others. So there could be Razorpay, there could be Stripe, or there could be other any services. So these are third-party services where we don't have control. Now, instead of keep on waiting on my service that, hey, something happened, maybe that happens after a minute or after 2 minutes, which is really a long time in the world of TikTok. But again, the whole point is I don't want to wait for this much long. I want that, hey, whenever this event happens, and there could be many events like this. For in our case, there are events like user created. So this is the event I'm waiting up for. Maybe you are waiting for another such event for a payment gateway. Let's just say maybe you are looking for a payment capture event. There are a lot of these events. These events are defined by the services, whoever is the service provider. So in this case, if I go ahead and walk you through with the Clerk as an example, that what kind of webhooks can be designed in the Clerk itself. So if I go back up here, and again on the home page of the webhook, let me go into this. Let me go into users, configure again. And if I go back onto the webhooks, each application have these kinds of webhooks. So let's just say I add an endpoint. I'll add this one a little bit later. So I'll just go ahead and say test, and we'll come on to this sfix play. What is this sfix play? This is an important key role in understanding this one. We'll definitely come on that. If this is bothering you, let me just say localhost colon 3000. It's ultimately not going to work, but let's just say we have an API endpoint where I say API slash webhooks, whatever you like, and I'll just say register. This is my endpoint. It's not going to work, and you can just go ahead and look for a HTTP endpoint. That's the basic. But now what you're going to notice in every single application, you actually mark that what kind of events can be triggered. For example, there could be email created, the most common one which are being used. But if you look at the organization events, everything is there. Permission created, role being created, sessions being created, SMS being created. There's a lot of things. I'm interested in just user.created, but you can select multiple one of them, and then we'll also learn how we can filter out based on what event type is. Let's go ahead and click on create, and I'll show you more how this works. And right now it says invalid. So I'll just go ahead and say HTTPS. As of now, we are not on HTTPS. You can work with HTTP. I'll walk you through with that part when we'll come on to that point. So it says invalid URL. Again, it doesn't accept that. .1, although this will also fail, but I think this is going to take this one. Yeah, this one takes this one. So coming back, this is how you actually plan your webhooks, that okay, whenever this activity happen or this event happen, you go ahead and notify me on this particular URL. So that's the job that you do in this application. So all right, so some noise outside is gone and now we can come back. So as we were discussing that it's the job of the platform to provide you these webhooks, just like we set it up a webhook here. And we now know this event will happen. Whenever this event happens, I will be triggered on one of the endpoint which I mentioned up here. And after that, there are a few steps. It's not like I can continuously just start working with the flow. It doesn't work like that. If that would be that straightforward, anybody can misuse, first of all. So that's the problem. You need to set some hidden keys so that only you know validation is happening. And it's not your regular event that coming up so you can extract things from its headers and bodies. There's a process for it. Depends on what kind of webhook providers the other party is using. So for example, you're going to see a lot of names in the webhook industry which a lot of people use. So if you just look at the Clerk, and you saw this when you were creating this as well, I guess I can go back and notice here. This is the one that says configure your endpoint and test with the SWix play. So this is your first hint. Usually these documentation and these websites are very upfront about what kind of player and anything that we use. So for example, in this case, they mentioned this SWix. So I'll just open this up in a new tab. SWix, it's a pretty popular company altogether. So SWix is a company which allows Clerk to create these webhooks and have a service of that. And whatever the service your servers are using, your third-party applications are using, you have to actually decode that information or get that information based on that. So for example, this is really a nice out-of-the-box service which measures about automatic retries if the endpoint is failing, so it tries it again. Security, logs and monitoring, development experience. So SWix is well known in the industry. So anybody who has worked with the webhooks, they know them very well. But it's not like these are the only ones. We have a couple of other players in that, like webhook.site is also one of them. Another one is webhookrelay.com, and there are others as well. Zapier also gives you webhook. So whoever is giving you these webhooks will give you these NPM packages so that you know how to handle them. If you go into the docs of this, you'll see that there is so many ways that how you can handle and verify the webhook. So notice here, it says why verify a webhook? Because obviously nobody should be able to decode these messages, and it should not be. So if I go back up here, you are going to notice that in the webhook, I have a secret that I have to create. So if I go back into my API keys, I guess, let me check this. Oh, it's just outside here. I wish there would be a dark mode here, but again, probably I'm missing something. Anyway, so if you go on to any of the webhook, like we created this one, each webhook will give you this signing secret, and this needs to come with us. So the step one is obviously, let's go ahead and add this into our application. So I'll just go here and copy this. So this is just, you get it, go ahead and copy this and go back into our application, go into our environment variables. Obviously, I'll be removing all of them as soon as I publish the video. So let's just call this one as webhook_secret. There we go, and paste it. So this is your webhook secret. Only you knows it. Nobody outside of this knows it. So that's the step one. Once you're done with this, webhook secrets are done. Now, rest of the things are almost configured here. We need to just solve a couple of problems to work with. So first of all, whenever I want to verify any webhook with the SWix library, I have to first install it. So I'm not sure if it will copy just one or both. I'll just copy this and install this application onto my system. Again, whatever the service provider that you're using, they will all mention this, that we are using this X or we are using Zapier. Whatever they're using, there is an NPM package, or whatever the programming language you're using, there's a package for this one. Let's also go ahead and create an endpoint of this in case you don't know how to do that. I'm pretty sure you do know that. So in the world of Next.js, if you go ahead inside your app folder and create a new folder that says API, this is where you write most of your, not most, all of your backend, and this is where things goes. Now inside this, we are going to create a new folder which is going to be webhook. Again, webhooks, whatever you want. And inside this, I'll create another folder. Yep, this is how it works. And that will be register. And inside the register, I will have a new file, which will be called as route.ts. Now, this whole thing will give you that whatever your URL is, for example, this is your URL, example.com, whatever example, eventexample.in.com, whatever that is, /API is the folder that you have created. After that, you have created a webhook as a folder. So this will act as a webhook. After that, you have created a register. So this is technically your endpoint. The problem actually lies when this example.com doesn't work. Even though we know that we have 127.0.0.1, this should work, but it doesn't work in the webhook space. Webhook cannot actually reach out to your localhost system and can deliver you all the payloads and header. In order to solve this problem, we have another solution which is there, and this is known as local tunnel. Now, you have heard about others as well. There is one more which is equally popular, known as ngrocks. Yeah, ngrocks. So this is the one which gives you the local tunnel, and you can just go ahead and install this. So this is also a really popular one. The one that we'll be using is local tunnel. So that is also there. So local tunnel LPM. So if I go ahead and open up this local tunnel LPM, you can install this globally. Since I use it quite often, I have it installed as globally on my system. Now, once you have installed it on a system or global level, then all you have to do is LT. This is a command that it installs you, and then simply say -- port and whatever the port you want to open. In our case, we'll be opening a port 3000, but whatever the port you want to open. So how does this work? Let me show you. It's a little bit of a slower end process, but again, nothing to worry. I'll just go ahead and say fire this up as npm run dev. I know now that this is running on port 3001. Probably my other application is running. So whatever the port you want to open doesn't really bother anywhere. So we want to open up in this browser. So let's go ahead and open this up. So 3001. All right. So we have this application up and running. Now, once you have local tunnel installed, you can fire up one more terminal and can say, hey, local tunnel, or just enter this one. It will give you all the options for you to study. And again, it is good that you study more about it. But in case you don't want to do that, then obviously you can come back here and just see that, hey, -- port is the most important option for me. And don't use open. Open has different structure and different tunnels. We just want to have ports being provided. So let's go ahead and do this. So LT, we know -- port. In our case, it's 3001. So as soon as you hit this, this is going to give you a local URL, which is on HTTPS. And this is the URL where your webhooks can actually deliver the payload, whatever the information they are getting. Just giving you a brief idea, this is a slower one. And the first time when you open it up, yep, this is how exactly it looks like. It will ask you that, hey, give me the tunnel password. Now, in order to capture the tunnel password, you need to look out that, hey, what is my tunnel password? Go ahead, open this up. And yes, this weird looking thing, this is your tunnel password. Copy this entirely carefully. Click up here and click on submit. So this will open up your application. This is slow. This is slow. So this is what you have. Now, what you have to do is and by the way, this every single time this gives you a new URL, but you can also control that through the application as well. There are enough instruction given to you that if you want to have a subdomain or a local host, whole information is written to you, but I'm okay with this one. I go back up here, and now instead of this, I want to edit that where this endpoints needs to come. So instead of this, just go ahead and add it. You already know now /API/local. Basically, you got a temporary domain. That's all. Now this will solve your problem of delivering this. Otherwise, what is going to happen is if I go ahead and open up back onto this. So we have these webhooks, which you can see 94% of failure. This is because we tested it out on the local host quite often to see that how and where it is failing. So notice here, some of them succeeded, but a lot of them got failed. If I open up a log or anything for any failure once, you are going to notice that where it delivered is on our local host, and that is the reason why it actually failed. So I guess we have activity. So basically that's why it failed. So you get the point and you get the idea. There could be other reasons why it failed, but you get the point that how this actually works and all of these things. All right, so some of the problems are being solved. So now that coming back here, we know that webhooks are of different varieties. SWIX is just one of them, but there are many others as well. And on top of that, these are responsible for sending us an event, and we cannot get an event on our local host in the testing environment. So we need some kind of a tunneling perspective. If you are deployed all the time and on the internet, hey, that's good. You can just get reach there. But in case you are not, then there are a couple of options like ngrocks, or there is local tunnel. I prefer to use local tunnel for no reason at all. And then we can actually grab this one. But how we are going to write our endpoint, that is also a little bit challenging. Not much, but a little bit challenging. Let's set this up, and I think it's better that if we talk about it on the go, that would be easier. The first thing, once we have installed the things, is we want to bring in a webhook. Webhook. And this will come from the SWIX. This is the first and most important thing. Apart from this, the whole idea behind SWIX is SWIX also sends you some of the headers. This is really interesting. And it's not like magically I came to know that. I read their documentation. I'll point you with the exact point where I found that. Don't you worry, but we need to grab the headers. So our headers in the Next.js comes from Next, and we have these headers. There we go. So that we can extract all information from it. Now, not only that, we will be requiring some things from the Clerk itself, because it's a Clerk webhook. So obviously Clerk will also do some of its magic. So we'll be saying a webhook event. Notice here, this comes from the Clerk service altogether. Now our flow is, we are already aware of what the flow we want to have. For example, as soon as a user registers, this is our flow. Previously we didn't talk about in this video, but the whole idea is exactly same. So as soon as a user registered using the Clerk, a webhook will be triggered on the Clerk side, and it will notify our webhook, and our webhook will act and will register the user in our own customized database. We are using Prisma and NeonDB for that, but feel free to use Drizzle or any other better choice that if you have. So, but one thing is sure, that we need Prisma in this case. So let's go ahead and grab the Prisma. We have already the localhost connecting file there. After that, we simply go ahead and say, hey, we'll be using an async function for this one. And this function will be handling the post request. Most of the webhooks actually gives you the post request. There might be exception, haven't dealt with that. But yeah, this is usually the case. All right, so there we go. Now, the most important thing, first thing is grab your webhook secret. That's the most important part for you. So process.env. And we don't have suggestions. So grab your webhook secret, because we want to initially just check this, that do we have the webhook secret or not. Let's call this one as webhook underscore secret, just like that. Now that I have a webhook secret, the first option or first point is you haven't, whether you have configured the webhook or not. So just go ahead and check this one, just like this. If you don't have webhook secret, just simply go ahead and throw an error. This is the most important thing. Throw new error, and that says, please add webhook secret. So anybody who is using our application secret should know that, hey, please add webhook secret in env files or wherever you are deploying this. All right, so this part is all done. Now what to do next? Zero idea. So let's go ahead and see that we know that Clerk use SWIX. So do we have any information from the SWIX that how do we work that? So first step was to install it. And then we simply go ahead and look for here. So it says, hey, I really need to know the secret of it. So we grab the secret, we are up there, and import the webhook from the SWIX. And by the way, this is available for all the programming language. We are focused on JavaScript. We can convert that into TypeScript as well, but this is what we need. After that, you need to extract the headers as well. So if somebody is using SWIX, then whenever the webhook is being triggered, we are expecting that we'll be having some information like SWIX ID, and we'll be having SWIX timestamp, and we will be having SWIX signature. After that, we can go ahead and extract the payload from it. So, and again, and this part of creating a webhook is required so that only you are dealing with the webhooks where the secrets are rightly present there. You are not handling any other requests that are coming in. So this part actually does that. After that, once everything is all good, we have WH, which is webhook. It verifies everything up here. And then based on the payload and the header, we can extract whatever the information we need and all of that. So all we got to do is now just replicate this whole thing. So this whole thing, we can just copy paste this, or you want to write that, you can go ahead and do that. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is, let's just call this one as header payload. So this header payload will come to us from the headers. Remember, the headers are Next.js headers. Look at this at the very top. Yep, these are the ones. So we have extracted this as header payload. Now let's go ahead and extract information out of it. So the first information is header payload. You go ahead and we will get a field which is known as svix ID. And nobody remembers that. Everybody just comes here and say, hey, I can actually grab all of this. We need only this one. So let's just paste this here. First thing that we need is svix ID. So let's just grab this svix ID. We'll need the timestamp and we'll be needing the signature as well. So copy paste. We need the timestamp. Copy this, paste this, and we need the signature. Copy this and paste this. All right, so these are the information that we need. And now obviously we would like to store that. So I think I can have multiple of these cursors. Const, and we'll call this one as svix. And now let's name one by one each one of them. This one is ID. This one is timestamp. And obviously this one is signature. All right, so extraction is all done. Now validate this just like they also do it. This is a compulsory part. This needs to happen. So pretty basic. So if there is no svix ID, or if you are missing anything from the timestamp, or if you are missing svix signature. So if any one of them is missing, I don't want to move forward. I'll just go ahead and say return new response, and we can just go ahead and throw a response which says error occurred. Okay, and no svix header, so that at least we know that what we are dealing up with is really stable, at least what we are getting. All right, so this part is all done. Now the next part is that we want to extract the payload as well. Payload is the data that comes up from the webhook. So if I go up here and want to see that, hey, what kind of data you will be sending me. So for this, the best example is you can just hit on testing and select the event. Like I have just won this event, and this is the schema that they will be sending up. Obviously you have to go a little bit in depth of what it's just like API handling. Now we will have this one. The way how it is being handled in the Next.js is let's just call this one as payload, and the payload is going to come up with await. Don't forget this request.json. We don't need to add any JSON or something. It's automatically there in Next.js. So this is your payload. Now let's just go ahead and extract, call it as a body. So we'll just say json.stringify the payload. There we go. So you have all of your data now and where you can work with that. So that part is all done. Now what's the next step? Let's see. The next step is these two. So we have got the payload. So whatever the payload is coming up, it depends on what application you're using. We are using Next.js. That's why we are using this format. If you're using a classic Node package, then go ahead and use that. I'll just go ahead and grab the final piece and we'll paste it up here. So let's just see what happens with this part. So again, we are just trying to create a webhook secret, which will help us to extract information, validate information, and a whole bunch of other things. But our secret is different. Our secret is here, webhook secret. So there we go. So we are creating a webhook, a special data type object. And after that, we'll not use this one. We'll use it in a little bit different format. We also don't need this. So we have this webhook. Now, here's the interesting part. We'll create an event. This event will give us a lot of information. And this event is actually a webhook type event, a webhook event. Right now, there is no data inside it. It's just an empty variable that I've created because I will be extracting information from it after verification. Notice here it says wh.verify. This is what I want to use, but the chances of failing this is quite high. So let's just go ahead and use a try catch. And inside this, let's use the same above variable event, and the event will get the value with webhook.verify. And inside that, we'll just provide that, hey, what all the payload is, what all the headers are. Now in our case, payload is not directly the payload, it's actually a body. So go ahead and fill up the variables. This is body. And the headers are not like that. So we have to provide the headers. Again, they are offloading the headers like this. It's a big object. Data types are important. So we have this big object and they actually expect this. So we extracted them all in one variable. So we can just provide it now. Let's just remove this and provide an object. We could have created object earlier as well. And I think it's good that if I just copy this and paste it up here, so we know exactly what variables are there, and then I can just go ahead and replace the values. So svix id, and here we have the timestamp. Oops. This one is going to be timestamp. Oh, the signature is pretty big. And this one is svix signature. There we go. So all the values are being provided. We can also cast it because it doesn't know, hey, what kind of event is there. So we know it for sure that this is, so we can actually forcefully cast it as a webhook event. There we go. Should be all happy now. Okay, this is all done. Now you have this event object. Now it's very, very important that you go ahead and dump this onto your console log to understand it properly, that what actually I get once I go back onto this event. And again, if this actually catches the error, let's handle the error part. And we'll say console.error, and we'll say error verifying webhook, because that's what happened. It couldn't verify that error. And we'll say return new response, and the response will be error occurred. You can definitely go ahead and grab better error messages and all of that. I'll also give a status code as well. Status of 400. All right, should be all okay. Okay, if this part is all done and you are able to achieve all of this, the try catch part, assuming that now this event value is being filled, so let's go ahead and extract data out of it. Now again, it's important that you go ahead and dump it down and see what object it is. I'll just cut the chase short here for you. So we first of all want to grab the ID, and that's going to be event dot data. That's how we actually got it. This is event. And we can also go ahead and grab the event type as well, because you'll be using multiple one of them. So I want to make sure that the code is compatible for the future. So this one will be event.type. Now again, if you are feeling a little lazy that, hey, I don't want to do that, this is what we are extracting here. So this is the type, which you see that, hey, this is the event type, which is user.created, which is marked for us. We can extract more things. We can extract this thing. We are more interested in the data. So that's what I'm extracting. This is where you get all the things like email addresses. There could be many, so it's an array, so handle it accordingly. In that you have to extract the email addresses, IDs, whatever you wish. Depends on how well nurture you want to make your code. There is primary address. So I'm interested in the two things. I get from the data, ID from the data, and I want to verify that what kind of event was triggered. Because within just webhook, you can go ahead and add more of the things. All right, so this is the part where you do some of the console logs. So logs will be super happy for you in this one. So go ahead and do that. Now let's write a robust code which is future proof and can help you with that. It's very simple. It's just an if else. It just simply says that, hey, if the event type that you are receiving is actually like this, user.created, then again, I want to do certain things. So do whatever you want to do. If you have more events, then go ahead and write more code. After this, there is no involvement of svix or Prisma or anybody else. We are now just working with the regular API calls. Yeah, so these are extra activities that you have to do, and this much only, this much only. And in case you are worried about other data types like Zapier and all of them, they all provide you exactly these kinds of information. And somebody calls them as svix, somebody calls them as Superman, doesn't really matter. This is the whole idea. This is all the basics. But since we are here, let's just go ahead and fire up a Prisma. What do we want to do? I'll go ahead and fire up a try catch. I'll extract some information from the event data. So you know this is where you have to study. So I'll go ahead and say I want email addresses. That is going to come up from event.data. And what else you want to bring in? And I would also say primary email address ID. We only get ID. We don't get the value directly. Why are you having an issue? All destructure elements are unused. Property does not exist. Email addresses. It should be email addresses. Let me grab this. It exists. Email addresses. Probably I'm missing something. Yeah, these things do happen. All right. Typo. My bad. Okay. Again, go ahead and dump down the data. So Go ahead and do log practice here. So what you are getting, this is always a good exercise. Now is the interesting part, especially with the clerk. So if you go ahead and look at this email addresses, this is an array. Further, if you open it out, is the first item. And then you have this email address. So this is where you get the email address as the field name. You can also verify this based on the IDs. So you're extracting IDs. So you can safely do this, or you can do this as regular, totally up to you. So I'll go ahead and say I want to extract primary email as my variable. And how I will do it is, I know I have this email addresses, which is an array, and I can use a method find for it. And once I have this method find, I'll go on each of the property, and if the email, I'll call this one. So wherever this email.id field matches with primary email address ID, that is the ID that I want. Again, you don't have to do this. This is 100% optional. You can just directly grab it if you are looking for it. But again, it's up to you how you want to work with that. But one thing you have to do is check here before doing anything. Make sure you check that if there is any primary email address that you are able to grab it, or you are just shooting in the empty spaces. So we'll just say return new response, which says no primary email, come on, email found. You can go ahead and throw up an status code as well if you wish. 400 is good enough. All right, this is the basics. And now just a simple stuff, which is create a user in Neon, or our DB in this case, PostgreSQL. How do we do that? It's super simple. You go ahead and use await. Then you have the Prisma access already. So go ahead and use Prisma. The table name in our case is called as user. And then we have simple method that is create. We just have one. So we'll just use a create. Objects, just pass on your data just like this. So data will work like this. What kind of data you want to give based on consult your table. In this case, I'll just say, hey, just add a user with the ID. We'll keep the event same as well, ID at least. So event.data.id, and I'm making sure that, yeah, this will come. You will see that, no problem there. And we will also have the email, which will come from primary email dot email address. Yeah, you have to actually dig it a little bit there. Again, this is just a regular API handling, nothing much. We also have one more field, which is subscribed there, which I would like to default turn it as false. Now, once this is all done, let's just hold this into a new user as a variable, just like that. And once this is all done, we can just do a console log for ourselves that, hey, user was created, user or new user created. And after that, let's also dump it. You don't have to do this in the production, but just giving you the idea that how this is being done. So this is the basic part of it. And I'll just copy this because I'll be using this. In the catch part, we can just simply go ahead and say, hey, I want to return a new response, which says error in creating a user in DB or something like that. Error creating user in database. That might fail. Again, we don't know this. So this is the part of it. And once all of this is done, so remember this, we have been working in this whole if statement so far. So if this is the type of event, that is all good. We would love to send a response back. This is also interesting. You don't need to do this, but it's a good practice actually. Otherwise, your error rates will be spiking up super high. So response, and again, each one of the webhook expects a different status to be returned, or sometimes even different messages to be returned. Most of them just worry about you give me a status code 200 back and I'll be all okay that you have received it, processed it, however you want, but it's up to you. I'll just go ahead and say webhook received successfully. Make sure I'm not doing any typo. I'm pretty sure I'm doing. Status is 200. And that's it. Told you. Now, after watching this video, I expect that you will never ever face any problem with any of the things that you're working with that. All right, so this is all good. Again, we extracted this ID, never used it. Should have done that in the console log, but let me just walk you through once summarizing this whole thing, because I know this is first time you're handling this. So let me just walk you through. So the whole idea behind the webhook is really simple, that applications give you webhook, and application, when they give you webhook, they cannot reach out to your local host. So first figure out your problem of localhost easily, local tunnel, ngrocks, whatever you wish. After that, the webhook is going to be triggered. So you have to configure a webhook, give it an endpoint that, hey, I'm waiting for some of the information to be received on this endpoint. Give that and select what are the events you are looking up for. It could be payment captured, it could be user created, whatever you are using. And then also figure out what kind of platform they are using. Is it a regular webhook? Do they have any package for it, or it's just a regular request? It could be also a regular request, but again, you have to make sure the secrets are exchanged properly and all of that. Again, it could be a chance. After that, make sure you validate this. Every single webhook needs to be validated properly so that you are communicating with the client which you are expecting. It's not like a user is just having fun with the postman. So we also work with that. And after that, extract the header information and just continue with the flow. That is the whole idea. And I really want that if you go ahead and try it like this, then it would be much awesome for you. You can go ahead and always try this out. You can do the testings and all of that. So you can send the event, what happened, send an example. Don't be afraid of it. It's just going to show some numbers that, hey, now notice here, it says, hey, we have failed this one. So why we failed this one? Go ahead and configure this and understand this. My application probably need another restart. Let me just open this up. So we are onto this here. And again, we probably need to work more onto this one, but we'll just see. All right. So let's just see what happened. So notice here, it says /signin. So the response is /signin. So right now we need to configure our middleware a little bit, because the application where we reached is sign in. It's not allowing this webhook to reach there. So obviously we need to debug this. Let's go into the middleware. This is the point. So webhook /API /webhook /register. Let's just see that. API webhook register. All right, let me quickly check this, why we are facing this. Welcome to real world development. That's how thing happens. You work with it, they show the error, you don't run away with them, you actually work with them. So again, no matter how experienced you are, you have to learn the debugging skills, because that's where the programming actually exists. So how did I debug? I'll walk you through with that. Yes, there were some embarrassing situations as well. So the first one was, I'm pretty sure you have already noticed, that was inside this webhook. So this H was missing. I'm pretty sure by the time I was recording this, all of these things, you might have already gone through this. So the first issue was that I was not able to reach out my webhook. So initial first instinct was, hey, my middleware is not configured properly, but turns out middleware was properly configured. I reached out, tried to reaching out the middleware through the postman. So whatever the web URL is, I reached it out and it says, hey, error occurred, no SVIX header. Previously it gave me errors like some of these errors. I'll show you if I can, where it says, hey, doesn't exist. So I don't think so we have these previous ones, but you get the idea. Previously I got the errors that, hey, I couldn't, there is no, in the dashboard I saw that environment variables are not set, all thanks to this one. So then I fixed this, and then I simply moved to that this part that, hey, if the postman is showing me the error that, hey, there is no SVIX header, then at least I'm reaching out to that point where I don't have the SVIX header, but at least I'm able to hit the endpoint. So what could be the next step? So I realized that once I was sending the endpoint, I actually named it as webhooks, just an extra S, and it was bothering. Obviously, the URL is wrong. So once I fix this, and again, there is no change in the code still remains as it is, whatever we have. And once I did the final testing with selecting the event and everything, we were able to get the first success here. If I open this up, you're going to notice that, hey, this is all they care, that, hey, response code was 200, the response is up here, and this is all what we got up in this one. So this is all about the webhooks handling part of it. And since the webhook are working fine, we were able to grab the user and add it into the user table as well. Of course, this time the user was example.example.org, because that's what the information we got. But the whole idea, the whole process of how the Webflow works, how to even debug these, you got all of this. So I think this makes it as almost like a perfect crash course where you learn all about handling the webhooks, event-driven architecture, SVIX, lot of stuff. I cannot fulfill all of them in the title, but hey, it was a quite fun journey. Hope you have enjoyed this. If yes, do let me know. Tweet out about this video. Let all people know that, hey, there's an interesting series going on. There's an interesting course going on. That's it for this one. Let's catch up in the next one.